Hey y'all, I am completely unprepared for this, so I apologize. This is not going to be smooth. Do I have access to share my screen? Okay.
We do.
All right, and you can see my PowerPoint?
Yes.
Yep, perfect.
Is it?
All right. I don't know if this is an official capacity, so I'm going to skip the survey also in the interest of time. So we're going to skip this survey and go into the Start Smart negotiation. I apologize, I'm pulling out my stuff still. Okay, so the American Association of University Women is one of the oldest women's organizations in the country. Since 1881, AAUW has been a catalyst for positive change, from boosting young women's access to education to shaping public policy and producing groundbreaking research on gender equity. In recent years, the AAUW has made economic security for women and families a core focus by addressing and advocating for change in policy and employer culture and empowering individual women to negotiate for fair and equitable pay. We are striving to end the gender pay gap by 2030. And then by joining us today, you are joining a rapidly growing community of AAU Smart Start alumni. So welcome to the movement that hopefully will end the pay gap. So this workshop is designed to empower you to successfully and confidently negotiate your salary and your benefits and make sure your compensation is aligned with your worth and your market value. Normally there would be a kind of practice session at the end, but again, I know in the interest of time, we're going to skip that. So it's going to be just kind of a lot of information flood at you. I apologize. So there's 4 steps to salary negotiation. The first is to know your value. The second is to know your target salary and benefits. The third is to know your strategy. And then the fourth is to practice. So let me go ahead and get into this. So before we dive into the negotiation skills, we want to start by addressing the why. The reason the AAUW is working to bring these negotiation workshops to communities across the United States is because we have a long way to go until the gender pay gap is eliminated. That is an issue that can affect you as early as your first job and can follow you all the way into your retirement. We are bringing you these tools because we want everyone to feel empowered to advocate for yourself in your own career and overcome any pay gaps you might be experiencing. So the gender pay gap is how we describe the inequality in what men and women are paid nationally. I think it was actually said earlier in one of the talks, but women working full-time are paid 82 cents for every dollar that is earned by a man. That's among people who work full-time, just to make sure that statistic is clear. So the gender pay gap exists in every single line of work at every educational level and at various ages. So as you'll see here, women of color are disproportionately affected by the pay gap. So you can see that Hispanic or Latina women earn 54% of what men make. American Indian or Alaskan Native earn 57%. Native Hawaiian and other Pacific Islander women earn 61%. Black or African American women earn 62%, and white non-Hispanic women earn 79%, and Asian women earn 90%. So at every single race and ethnicity, no one is earning as much as a man would make. So that's just concerning across the board. So these lost wages mean that women and their families have less money to support themselves, save and invest for the future, pay down their debt, spend on goods and services. And so because of that, family, businesses, and the economy overall suffer as a result. So this data is reported by the National Women's Law Center. They use a formula to estimate the total losses of a 40-year career. We want to emphasize that this is not a woman issue, this is an economic issue. So based on today's national pay gap, the National Women's Law Center determined that women lose over $406,000 over the course of a 40-year career compared with men. Black women lose over $900,000 over the course of a 40-year career, and then Latinas lose over $1 million over the course of a 40-year career with white men. So that's very concerning statistics there. And some of the causes of that gender pay gap are women are paid less for the same amount of work. Women are overrepresented in low-wage jobs and underrepresented in high-wage ones. Women are well represented in undervalued fields such as healthcare, education, and public administration. And women are discriminated against and face barriers that result in lower pay because often they are caregivers. So All right, and then before going into the skills again, we want to pause and acknowledge stereotypes and what we call the double bind. So the double bind represents the conflicting demands that women receive around behavior expectations, especially at work. Women often have two choices, either to be seen as competent or to be seen as liked. Likeable women are seen as incompetent sometimes, and vice versa, and they're not really given stretch assignments. But when women step out of cultural expectations and are assertive and advocate for themselves, they can come off as unlikable. That is a factor that can definitely make negotiations more difficult for women. So because you want to be seen as competent and liked, obviously, you really need to be in order to get what you want, according to them. So I am going to skip some of the questions. I apologize. Like I said, just effort of time. So step one of the negotiation is to know your value. So, how do you confidently and articulately share the value of what you bring and the contribution that you will make to your position in a way that resonates with the employer? This seems really intuitive, but for many, this section requires some behavior change. For many of us, we're not really comfortable talking about our accomplishments. And for some, there may even be cultural norms in how you were raised that make this a lot more difficult for you. So we're going to share some tools that will help you speak more confidently about your work. So I apologize, this is an activity as well. So I'm going to skip it. Basically, the gist of it is that you're your own brand. We do hear this a lot, brand, in the area of social media, currently working on a brand guide for our office right now. But we're not going to dig into the personal brand today, but we want to remind you that you are your own best advocate. Nobody knows your impact in the work you do as well as you do. So just make sure that you are advocating for yourself. You're selling something that is unique, and that includes your identity, the combination of your work experience, your work ethic, your interests, your goals, your personality, education, all of it is you. So just make sure you understand that you are unique, you're selling yourself. So make sure that you are selling yourself in a way that lets everybody else know how great you are. So I'm going to go to, real quick, just internally think about kind of what differentiates you from others. How do you bring value to your company organization, or how do you anticipate you'll bring value in to your company organization? Because I know a lot of y'all are probably going to be job seeking soon, so you may not know quite yet. And then what skills, accomplishments, and work experiences demonstrate the value or the contributions you'll make in the position that you're seeking. So take a picture, maybe screenshot. This is something to think about on your own time as you go forward. I think these are really good questions to start building, like I said, your brand, your resume, everything. So on a sheet of paper, on a Word document, just something, I'm going to give you like 2 minutes just to write down as many accomplishments, contributions, skills, relevant work experiences, and things you're proud of. Also, while I go tell everybody in the hallway right here to quiet down for a second. All right, y'all. Hopefully you have some good things there. Things like finishing a big product or project, winning a new account. Maybe you got an award. I will say LinkedIn, like certificates are really great here too. Things like that, those count as well. So keep this going. Don't stop this now because it's very important to know your value the whole time. Real quickly, I want you to take one of the things you wrote about and think, what did you do to make it happen? What role did you play? What were some of the positive results? And can you quantify it? Because I think this is like one of my biggest resume writing advices is to quantify. Numbers mean a lot on a resume. So if you can quantify your value in any way, absolutely do that. So take a second just to kind of go through these questions in your head, write them down maybe, because we are going to make a value statement. So it's important to have all this information ready.
Jesse, do you have any, sorry.
no,
Do you have
go
any
ahead.
recommendations for when something's hard to quantify, like if you weren't organizing a specific amount of people or doing a specific amount of, writing proposals? How do you think of quantifying things that are a little more intangible?
Yeah, and you don't have to quantify everything. Like there will be points on your resume. There's points on my resume that are not, they're just not quantifiable. It's, there's no point in trying to work and, assign numbers to something. But if you, did something and so I run the Aggie Green Fund. If you, proposed a grant for $3,500 that installed, this is not the number you would get for it, 15 water stations, because really you can only get one with that price. That's more what I mean about quantifying. I wouldn't stress if you don't have numbers. I just, if you do have them, it really shows like an employer, okay, like, yeah, she did, that much. She had that many employees. She did that. So it's not necessary to do it if you don't have them. So I wouldn't bend over backwards. All right, we're going to go into, like I said, a value statement. So a value statement is how to share your skills and accomplishments in an objective, data-driven way. And it should obviously be tailored every time to a job you're applying for. Like it's kind of same as like a cover letter. You really don't want to use the same one over and over again. You want to really tailor it for the job. So this is an example of kind of a draft. Like I accomplished blank using my skills blank, which benefited my company by XYZ. So you could say, do I have an example on here? I don't think I launched a campaign to raise awareness around sexual violence on campus using my leadership and communication skills, which led to the university strengthening its policies on sexual violence, reducing reported incidences by 15% within the year. So, and there's, unfortunately, you may not know exactly what your, full scope of your results may be, but just kind of try to keep it in what you do know. This is obviously something that you should be constantly updating, and maybe getting those numbers and statistics from anyone that you worked under. But I'm going to give you like 2 minutes just to write your value statement, and then if anyone would love to share, I think that would be really great to see other ones. I'd love to hear, some of your students, some of the students, what your value statements are. So I'm going to give you like 2 minutes there. Would anybody like to share what their value statement is? And don't feel pressure, it's challenge by choice, but just in case anyone would like to.
I can share mine.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily for a company. I kind of adjusted it a little bit for something else, but I would say like I accomplished founding a sorority at Texas A&M using my skills in like communication, organization, leadership, which benefited our school by starting a place for women in STEM majors to have like a common area to, I would say, a common area to work on our professional and social skills.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Thank you.
And obviously just like those skills also can reflect to pretty much any job, so just keep that in mind. Just because you didn't write it for that doesn't mean it can't be used for that, because those skills are very transferable.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
The same thing for me. It's called adapted it to the position I have now because to me it's an accomplishment. I accomplished being the marketing lead for the University of Texas at Dallas Office of Sustainability using my graphic design, social media outreach, and blog management skills, which benefited my department by raising Instagram follower count by 12% and blog followers by 35%.
Awesome. And that's one good thing about, I was thinking about this in case I need to make one up for Allie, who's on our call. She's our social media intern, is the insights tool for like Instagram and Facebook is fantastic because it has percentages, it has all of that stuff. So if you run any type of social media, look at that because that will give you great numbers.
It's really detailed, yeah. It's like, oh, like this month I didn't really pay. Like maybe it's because I put that post there in that format. That's like,
Yeah, we started posting on our TikTok more consistently for the first time in a long time, and it was like, you're up 999%. I was like, we're taking that. That's a fantastic number.
great.
So, yeah, thank you guys for sharing. I appreciate that. All right, so just some tips to be your best advocate. Like I said, you're the only one who's going to advocate for yourself. Make sure you document your accomplishments. Keep a journal. Weekly may be too much, but bi-weekly, monthly is a great way just to keep track of things that you're doing. Like, yeah, I planned this event. I got this many followers. I did XYZ. And so that by the time you're doing this more consistently, you have an entire journal or piece of paper or document of just a ton of accomplishments you can reference. And that also helps come interviewing to have a whole list of things you can brag about yourself. If they were to ask a question, you're like, yeah, let me just pull my list real quick. And I have a million things that I've done that I'm so great at. Think beyond the task as well. We can get in the weeds day to day. And so it may feel like just like mundane. It's not really what I'm doing is not that important, but really think about how your work fits into the big picture and how it can really contribute to just more than yourself, but like it contribute to your office, your organization, your sorority, everything. And then, like I said, quantify your work. That's just keep saying that. Really bring data in whenever you can because it just looks fantastic on a resume. And it looks fantastic in an interview to be able to pull those numbers. And everything counts. This one's really important. Women tend to take on more things like event planning and side projects around the office. There are so many ways you can bring that in. I recommend one thing I do whenever I get asked for help with resumes is kind of Google the job description you're looking for and use those same kind of terms to build your resume. But make sure you put stuff like this in there. And like our old suite, I worked with our executive, oh gosh, what was Ashley's title? Admin person, and I helped her plan a lot of like our birthday celebrations, stuff like that like wasn't really necessarily in my job description, but I took on those roles, and that's how you can say like, yeah, event planning, stuff like that. So make sure you count that stuff as well because it is important. All right, and then negotiation step number 2 is to know your target salary and your benefits. Almost all employers have set salary ranges for their jobs. I know a lot of them, most of them don't post that, and you're just kind of wondering what their job range is. But all jobs have worth on the market. So it doesn't matter how much you've earned at your first job, nor does it matter what your last salary was. Your market value is what your employer is likely to pay you in that position. So kind of 6 steps to benchmarking your salary and your benefits is to 1, research and identify comparable job titles. I was actually on a LinkedIn learning thing the other day, and just make sure like realize that some titles have other names. Like you could be a coordinator, but that could also be a career advisor. Like there's multiple names. So just kind of keep that in mind when you're searching. Like if you can't get sustainability operations coordinator, it might be because it's a different title somewhere else. So just kind of keep that in mind as you're looking. Find the market rate for the position and establish your target salary. We'll show you how to do that. Use your target salary to create your target salary range, kind of like what you're willing to go for in this job. Determine your walkaway point. This is the point where it is, you really want this job, but they cannot pay you either in salary or benefits what you are hoping. So that is the point where you have to walk away. Create a realistic budget and assess the value of your benefits. So setting your target, just some real quick definitions. Your target salary, like I said, is your worth based on the objective market wage data. This has nothing to do with your past, nothing to do with anything else. It is your worth based on the data. Your target salary range is the range that you will use to negotiate with your employer. Your salary, your target one is the anchor at the bottom of the range. And then your walkaway point, the lowest salary that you're willing to accept and still reach an agreement. And it's also a tool to prevent you from accepting a salary that you might later regret, just because you're like, oh, I really want to get this job. Like when I graduated college, my goal was I just want to graduate and know what my next step is and know what the job is. And if I had taken that job, I would have actually taken, it would have been over 10,000 less. And in my job I did take, I got free housing, which really was like a $15,000 bump because of, I didn't have to pay rent. So make sure you're not just taking a job to take a job if you can avoid it. Obviously that's not the circumstance for everybody. And sometimes a job is a job, but if you have the option, you know, kind of look at your walk away point. So salary.com is a great resource, or payscale.com that has a lot of data for salaries. And so I would recommend kind of putting in your title, your keyword here, your location, because that does change. It's not the same across the United States. What we have in College Station, Texas is not the case for Seattle, Washington. So just make sure you're looking at your location too, because the standard of living is very different in different places. And then Glassdoor and LinkedIn can also be used, but the pay scale and the salary are more for what that's actually worth, or why those websites were developed. So just keep those in mind as backups. If you know anyone at the company you're seeking or in your industry, asking them for guidance on salary is also a really great way to collect data. Some cities and states are passing legislation to allow more pay transparency in the workplace. I think it's Colorado, I could be wrong, but I think it's Colorado who has to post their job, they're either their salary range or the target salary on every single job posting, which is fantastic, just so that way you're not wasting your time if it's not something that's in your range. So hopefully, fingers crossed, more people start doing that. So this is kind of just an example. If we had done the activity earlier, we would have had a resume from someone wanting to go into, I believe it was sports marketing. And so this is what they looked up as one of their jobs. So notice that this is not sports marketing. It's a public relations specialist. So there's different, like I said, different terms you can use. And it may not be the same. So don't get discouraged if you can't find your exact title you're wanting. Try to think about what other titles it could be. So looking at the requirements and the responsibilities, excuse me, I need to refer back to my book. Sorry, yeah. So just looking at the responsibilities, making sure you meet them. I can't remember what study was done, but I believe it's, and Kelly, correct me if I'm wrong, women specifically are less likely to apply for a job if they feel like they don't hit every single aspect of the job description. I say shoot your shot. The worst they're going to do is say no. So keep in mind that a man is going to statistically apply for it even if he doesn't fit it. So why shouldn't you? And my biggest advice there is you can learn it. I had no idea how to run a grant management software when I started this job, and now I know that thing like the back of my hand. So just kind of keep that in mind. If you don't fit every single one of these things, it's okay. We encourage you to apply and rather try and not get it. Because you might try and get it. Like I said, the job I took after college wanted a master's degree. I just got a bachelor's. It doesn't make sense. So just try. The worst they can do is say no. But so from this same example, this is what you'll see the salary range on salary.com for a public relations specialist 1. So some companies choose to lead, lag, or match the market. So that's kind of right here this is leading, the ones who are paying more towards the upper end of the scale. Matching is pretty much this target right here, and then lagging is a little bit under to about 3/4 of the way through. Lagging is not necessarily always a bad thing. Keep that in mind, as long as the benefits make up for it. Lagging can be a bad thing if there's not good benefits. So just kind of keep that in mind. We'll get into benefits as well. So make sure you're looking at the full package to identify what is most important to you before you accept the position. So obviously you need to, step number 2, find the salary range and establish your target salary. You really want to aim for at the median when you're setting your target salary. If you're reaching for a position that's slightly above your level, you don't want to undervalue yourself to be a competitive candidate. And this information is all here to empower you. So, and then obviously step number 3 was to identify a target salary range. So once you do your salary, you want to identify your range. Best practice is about 20% upwards, and that can be your range. When you share your desired salary in negotiations, studies actually suggest that you'll be more successful if you put your target salary range at the bottom instead of asking for it outright. So giving a range suggests that you're more cooperative and flexible. So this is kind of the salary range for this specific example. Like I said, 25%, 75%, this range, but this is a salary that they would ideally like, is this target one. And then the range they're going to give though is this to about 3/4 of the way through the 75th. So a smaller range may be more appropriate if you are entry or mid-level in your career. So we really don't recommend exceeding 20%. But if you are seeking a salary closer to that 75th percentile on salary.com, don't let this information discourage you. Like I said, do what you got to do, shoot your shot, but make sure that you use your value statement and build a case for what differentiates you and why you deserve that higher range. You just have to be able to back what you're saying. And then step number 4, best to determine your walkaway point. Identifying a walkaway point prevents you from accepting an offer you may later regret. Like I said, it can also be informed by your budget and your personal situation. So your walkaway point should not be much lower than your target salary, and you should make sure you have a comprehensive budget to match it, so that you're not putting yourself into a financially insecure position. Because that's like worst case is that you're not making enough money to cover what you need to and you're just going into debt. That's why step number 5 is to create a realistic budget. Knowing your personal budget can prepare you to negotiate and confirm your target salary if it's appropriate or not. It's also a good idea to estimate your monthly take-home pay after taxes when you're doing this budget. So if you find your budget is greater than your target salary, you can re-examine your budget to reduce expenses or assess whether this job is realistically a good fit or not. Remember to set your salary targets based on objective data. Your budget can inform those goals, but it should not be a reason to increase your target salary outside of a range that you cannot actually justify. On the other hand, having a budget below your target salary doesn't mean you should decrease what you're willing to accept. It's never a bad thing to live below your means and kind of save up. Just some notes that I have, because I do budgeting like religiously, like once a month. My husband and I sit down, we go over the budget. I work through it like every single week. I check in, just because I'm big on this. Most people are like, oh yeah, your mortgage, your rent, your bills. Some things that I didn't think about when I first started was I pay for Spotify. That's a streaming service. Your groceries, how many times do you want to go grocery shopping in a month? And then what's your budget for it? Do you want takeout food? Spending money. One thing that, we found is we give ourselves spending money because it allows us to still spend a little bit and just kind of buy small things, maybe like I usually mostly use it for like Taco Bell because that's what I want most of the time. But it can be for other things, and it makes it where you're not depriving yourself. So if you have the room in your budget to have spending money, I recommend it. I also do a celebrations account, just so that way come, like the holiday season, I'm not dropping a ton of money I've been putting money away every single month to that account, and that makes it a little bit easier. Like right now I'm doing all the shopping, and it's nice to have it come from an account and not on my credit card. And then also things to consider are celebrations, emergency funds, and debt. So keep those things in mind. And then number 6 is to factor in the value of benefits. Benefits are just as important as your salary. We've seen how many talks today about, paid leave, sick leave, all that is so important. So make sure you're knowing that your benefits are also negotiable. Certain benefits like health insurance or vacation are pretty standard for all employers, but they can be negotiated. Rather than ask for more of everything, focus on what's important to you. For example, if you don't care about stock options or you don't care about tuition reimbursement, maybe don't focus on those as much. When you're at home, ask which benefits are typically offered. If possible, talk to people who work at the company where you're interviewing. Consider what's valuable to you and whether or not you should negotiate. And some other things to consider are like with medical leave, how many people are at a company is what determines how much you pay. When my husband was at his other job, they only had like 5 employees, and so it was insanely expensive to be on the plan for health insurance. But with working at A&M, there's so many employees here that it's like $30, but if you do a 2-step program, it's free. So just things to consider is that medical health insurance is kind of depends too on the company you're going for and how many employees they had, but things like family and medical leave. Currently, I'm expecting. So this has been a fun one, saving up PTO so I can go on maternity leave in February. Things like vacation time, flex time, sick time. One thing I really like here is that at my old job, we only had PTO. You got however much PTO a month and that was it, whether you were sick or you just wanted to go on vacation. But working for the university, we have sick and PTO. And so that way I don't have to use my PTO if I'm sick or have a doctor's appointment. So things like that are important to keep in mind. Life and disability insurance, professional development, retirement plans, all of these are really important. If they're important to you, make sure that you're negotiating them is basically the part of this. All right, and then I guess I'm trying to keep on time. So knowing your strategy is negotiation step 3. So up until this point, we have discussed tactics to be data-driven and highly objective during the negotiations. For the rest of this, we're going to look on ways to become highly strategic and highly persuasive. So first off, negotiation should not start until an offer has actually been made. There are typically several conversations before concluding the negotiation, as each party considers the requests, offers, counteroffers, etc. as you're going back and forth. Remember to remain positive and flexible throughout. Once you get to a point where you feel like you need time on your own to consider an offer, you should always feel free to ask for it. No one's going to be like, no, you have to decide right now or we're rescinding your offer. They'll give you some time if they want you. And obviously they want you because they're making you an offer. So just some couple tips for entering your negotiation is to bring your notes in. Remain positive and flexible, like I said. Negotiation is not a battle. It is a conversation. So keep that in mind. Don't go in there full force. Try, like I said, be flexible and positive. It's a conversation. Don't get personal. No one is saying, you're terrible, you don't deserve that. Let it, if they're looking at their company's best interest and you're looking at your best interest. They don't know you enough to make it personal. It may feel like it, but they don't. Anticipate your employer's reactions and responses. Like I said, remember your employer picked you. They want you to work there. They want to make it work. So they're going to do what they can to make it work. So in the application stage and during an interview, you might be asked about your salary history or salary expectations. We recommend using a deflection technique because you can avoid answering those questions. You really should wait until you have an offer in hand to answer those if you can. Obviously, sometimes you'll see in job applications, they ask you as a required question, what are your salary expectations? We recommend at that point, if that's happening, to put your range in, obviously after you've done your research. But if you can avoid it at any point until you get the offer, go ahead and do that. So researchers have found that the salary history question in the hiring process is one of the most pervasive reasons the gender pay gap still exists. Some cities and states now prohibit employers from asking for salary history to make sure, so make sure you research the laws in your area. So if you're in an area where that has happened, you need to make sure you're reporting it because it could be illegal to ask that. Participants can find out more about the pay equity laws on the AAUW website, which I will go find after this, and I'll drop it in the chat so y'all can refer to it there as well. So just a couple points to go over. If you can, get them to share their target range first, try to, because that puts you in a better position to know kind of what they're looking at. One, because you're able to set yours, but two, you can figure out this is a waste of time because you could get through an entire interview and get an offer and they just, it's not your range and you just wasted how much time doing that. So if you can try to get them to share it, go ahead and try to do that. If you find that your salary requirements were too low, you can also bring that up. Don't feel like, oh, I said I wanted 50,000, but they were willing to offer like 60 to 70. You're not stuck at 50. You can say, like, hey, now that I've learned more about the position, my salary requirements have changed a little bit. This is my new range. That's totally appropriate to do. So don't feel like you're set in one area just because you said something either on the application or one time you got asked it. So don't feel like you're stuck. So just some deflecting responses. So if your employer asks about your salary history, some good responses. Obviously, this is all easier said than done, right? But practice makes perfect. This position is not exactly the same as my last job, so I would like to discuss what my responsibilities would be here and then determine a fair salary for this job. I'd appreciate if you can make me an offer based on whatever you have budgeted for this position, and we can go from there. My salary history and expectations are in line with my professional achievements and my experience with the and with the requirements of the position. So those are some good deflection things. when they ask about your history. For your expectations, you can say, I'd like to see if I'm a good fit first before we discuss salary. I'd like to learn more about the role before I set my salary expectations. As we move forward in the interview process, I expect that my salary would line up with market rates for similar positions in the area, or I'd appreciate if you made me an offer based on what is budgeted for the role, and we can go from there. These all remind me of that lady on TikTok who does like the toodaloo, and she like has the really just like well thought out responses. Right, every time I read these, I think of her, and I'm like, that's good. It's good education that she's giving us. All right, I'm sorry, I lost my place. Okay, so we are now at the point that you got the job. What does that look like? So if you get an offer at or above your target salary, great, you did it. Wonderful. Review the compensation package, decide whether you want to negotiate further or focus on more of the benefits. If you're happy with it, you're happy with it. But make sure you can clearly spell out any value you are going to negotiate if you did get it in your range. If you get an offer below your target salary, you should attempt to negotiate. Also consider what benefits may bridge the gap and make the offer more acceptable. If you cannot negotiate above your walkaway point, you need to consider, is this job really for you? And so an important part of negotiating is learning how to respond persuasively. Before entering a negotiation, you should anticipate 3 to 5 different ways that an HR rep or a manager might respond to your requests, and be ready with ways to respond or to overcome their objections. So this is a great place to leverage benefits if an employer is unable to meet you at your target salary. So if they were to say, I don't have the budget for this high of a salary, you could say, if that's the case, would you be open to us working together to identify ways to cover this salary this year or plan for increased funds next year? Would you be open to discussing including an increase for me in the next year? Can we talk about benefits or other non-monetary benefits? I absolutely understand our budget constraints, but with my work history, I have demonstrated success in saving our company money. If not now, do you think we can revisit this in 6 months for a review? This is really important just because all of these are basically saying, I'm going to come back to this, you know, whether it's in 6 months or a year, I'm going to come back to this. And so they know that you're taking this seriously and you're not going to let it go, basically, which is not a bad thing. And then, so if they say in the future, you'll have opportunities for growth, you could say, because this number is a little lower than I feel comfortable with, I'd love to discuss my opportunities for the future. I know that one of the most important things in this role is blank, whether it's, you know, getting more clients, increasing followers, getting more grant money, XYZ. If I'm able to deliver that in this time frame that we set, would you be open to raising my compensation to my target salary then? So you're saying, you're right, can I do this by this date and what we can talk about it? If they say wait until next year, you can say thank you for your support. I do want to continue to align my value with the needs of this organization. Can we check in again in 4 to 6 months? You'll see again, all of these really are about being persuasive and letting them know, like, this is important to me. I'm kind of not going to let this go. You know, what's a good time frame? What do you need me to deliver in order to get this, etc. And so, excuse me. So after negotiating salary, like I said, remember to consider negotiating for benefits. Ask if your employer offers benefits that you value. So like, for example, if flex time is really big for you, do they offer that in some ways? Working remote really important to you? Negotiating benefits is one approach for making a low salary offer more acceptable. It's also a way to maximize your value during the negotiations. So excuse me. And also when you're negotiating for a raise or promotion, you know, down the line, you've already got the job, ideally the target salary, you're ready to go in for, you know, raise or promotion. You can also negotiate better benefits then. Since you're already working, you also have a better idea of what actually is negotiable when it comes to benefits at your company. Like for example, if there's no remote option whatsoever, you kind of have that going in to a raise or a promotion that, considering an entire policy would most likely have to be made for that. So what are some other areas that you could negotiate? And it's not saying don't shoot your shot, don't let them know, but just kind of keep stuff like that in mind as you kind of get to know the company. All right, and then so you've gotten your verbal acceptance. They took your target salary, you got all the benefits you want. Make sure you get the offer in writing. Never take anything verbal. Always get it in writing and read it carefully. before signing to make sure everything you discuss is included. The job I got offered when I first got, like when I was first graduating college, I was supposed to be like an education for children, doing like programming for recycling. And my offer letter said administrative assistant, which is not what I was told. So make sure that you are getting it in writing and it is correct. And so, sorry, this does not ever stop. Just because you do it once does not mean you're done. So you'll get, you'll start looking for jobs, you'll apply, you'll interview, you'll negotiate and accept. You'll either earn a raise or promotion, and that'll keep going in a cycle, or you go to a new job. And so the whole thing starts over again. You'll be doing this to your entire career. So make sure your portfolio and your resume are always up to date and remember these steps. And so this is kind of where we would go into the practice. And I know that it's already 3:48, so I want to make sure that I'm being cognizant of y'all's time. So just a reminder that the 4 steps to salary negotiation are knowing your value, knowing your target salary and benefits, knowing your strategy and practice. It may sound weird to practice negotiating. Kelly has no idea, but the first time I ever negotiated was with her with this job, and I was freaking out on the other side of the email. I was calling my father-in-law, I was calling my sister, I was like, I don't know what to say, I don't know what to do. I'm so unprepared for this. What if they say no and rescind my offer? That did not happen, obviously, because I'm here and jumping on a very unprecedented call or talk here. So just practice. And like I said, they want you, so they're going to do what they can to get you. So just make sure you're advocating for yourself. And then that's all I have, because the other ones are the post survey, but we did not do the pre-survey. So any questions? I will do my best to answer them.
I have a question. So how do you respond to tough negotiators or any tough questions that may be presented?
So like they're just not willing to budge on what you're saying.
Yes, or willing to budge like very little, like very, very little.
Yeah, so that could happen in the practice if we had been able to do it. I really like it because it shows we basically have like the person applying gets to see their target salary, and then they turn around and then the employer gets it. And so a lot of it could be the employer truly does not have that, like they don't have that budgeted. They cannot do that. And so that could be one of the reasons. Another reason could be they just, don't see your value. My question at that point would be, do I want to work for someone who doesn't see my value? And that's kind of something I think you need to look at internally and realize, and it kind of goes with your walkaway point too, like this all goes together with your range, your negotiation, the benefits, everything. If you already don't feel valued in the interview, that's kind of a precursor to what's you're probably going to feel like the rest of your time there. And obviously it's really important just mental health wise to feel like you're valued. So, I'd like to think it's just them only having a certain budget, but you do need to look at the rest of the process and see how you felt, kind of trust your gut. Does this feel like the right job? Look at your walkaway point, stuff like that. And it may not be, and that just might be the case. And you can end an interview, you can end a negotiation at any time. You are not locked in at any point. So
Nice, cool, thank you.
Yeah.
I also have a question. I'm in the process of applying for full-time jobs right now, and I'm having a tough time with determining like what my asking salary should be, or like what I should say my range is. Do you have any resources for determining like what I should be saying, like this is my range, or this is my minimum, or this is what I'm asking for?
Yeah, like I said, I would go on that pay scale or that salary and just kind of see specifically in the area you're looking for. Because like I said, if you're looking in College Station, that's going to be day and night from looking in like Seattle, Washington. I say that because my best friend's there, so I know the cost of living is insane. So that's the first step, is to look at where you're actually looking at. Austin's going to be a lot more expensive. Apologies to those who live in Austin, but it is going to be a lot more expensive than College Station. So look at that first. Try to figure out what your kind of other terms are. Like I said, coordinator, manager, things like that, because it may not be the same. And then kind of look at your values. Like I said, list out your accomplishments and your value and see, can you justify each of these points on the job description. And again, not that you have to, please apply, because women statistically do not. Please apply for those jobs, even if you're not. But like if you're hitting like 70 or more of those, honestly, like I think you should be asking more and shoot your shot. But because you're at A&M, right, too?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, I mean, we can chat more if you want to, and like I can help you look on like pay scale and all that. Like I said, LinkedIn and Glassdoor kind of second options, just because that's not what they're designed for. They're more for job hunting and like the networking side of it. So I look at those first two, but I'm happy to chat more too, and I can help you kind of look at this. I can put my email in the chat, and then
Thank
feel
you.
free to reach out. I'm a brand new, well, this is my first semester being a facilitator, but so I can do what I can.
Okay, thank you.
Before we close out the conference, any last questions for Jessie?
Thank y'all for letting me not be completely prepared at all.
Thank you for stepping up. That's so awesome. Okay, just checking. No more questions for
There was
Jessie.
one in the chat, actually.
Okay.
Yadira asked Jessie if she's a part of AAUW.
I think in the sense of being the facilitator, yes. There's also a student org version too. Actually, my chair for the Green Fund is like the vice president for the student org too. But I think in the sense, like, because I became a facilitator, I am a part of AAUW. I think. Unconfirmed. I can figure that out. Thank y'all.
Well, thank you, Jessie, once again for stepping up and filling the space after our speaker didn't show up. I wanted to thank everyone again, especially our panelists, for sharing their experiences and advice with us. Additionally, thank you to all the other speakers, students, and faculty who were involved in making this virtual student summit a success. Specifically, I'd like to shout out Carolina, Haley, Yumika, who wasn't able to join us today, and Paige, who made a significant effort to join us, and all the planning effort that they've put in. They've been working really hard for the past 3 months to make this conference a success, and I'm really proud of all of them. The theme of today's conference is work equity and social justice, and I hope you come away from this conference with something new in regards to those topics. As the conference comes to a close, I encourage you all to reflect on what you learned about these topics and consider what made an impact on you and how you would like to incorporate it into your life. I'm going to send out an email tomorrow with a list of all the resources that were sent in the chat today, just so you have them at the ready as you're getting ready to enter the workforce. I'm now going to turn it over to Kelly Wellman, TRACS Executive Committee member from A&M, to close us out.
All right, thank you so much, Samara. Before we do the final closeout, I just want to make one brief announcement. Let me share my screen here. I know better than that. Hang on, sorry. All right, so TRACS, which has helped really, the TRACS Executive Committee didn't really do any work. The amazing students here today did all this work, and we'll get to that in a second. But we're very excited to let you know that Texas A&M will be hosting the 9th annual summit on April 3rd and 4th. So for any students who are still around, this is an opportunity. We haven't been in person, obviously, in a couple of years, thanks to COVID's interrupting our process. But this is going to be, I think, a really nice homecoming for all of us to be together in one space, students, faculty, and staff. And more information will come out about that. And you can find out at texascampussustainability.com. That is the TRACS website. That's where we will continue to update information, how you found out about the event today, if you're on our TRACS listserv, or if you have got information coming through your university, you're likely to also see that information for the summit as the registration and details like that for emerge. So we expect probably January for registration to open. This will be made, I can't remember the final price point, but I want to say it's pretty accessible for students to attend, to understand that overnight lodging and things like that can be barriers, but we are trying to make this as cost effective as possible to have as many students be part of our in-person event here in April. So with that, stop sharing my screen. And of course, on behalf of the TRACS Executive Committee, we really could not have asked for a better and more exciting venue than the students put together today. When I saw the workup for all of the speakers and just really the topic about work equity, I was really impressed and excited. So nice job to all of you all. I want to specifically, and I know that Samara just did this, but thank our student leaders one more time. Samara Zuckerbrod, Paige Worth, Yumiko Balotro, Haley Jarjura, and Carolina Para, who organized and assembled this fantastic event today. Their vision and hard work make everything possible. I also want to thank each of you who've stuck with us this long and are still in attendance. And thanks, Jesse, for coming in at the pinch hitter there at the end. But we look forward to seeing you all at a future event. Have a